2 days after liftoff, Lunar Module Aquarius, coupled to Command Module Odyssey, was nearing the Moon. Everything was going smoothly. It had become almost routine.
Trips out to the Moon and back are generally very quiet, kind of boring, as a matter of fact. Crews kind of going over their checklist, etc. They had a TV day that day where the crew took everybody on a tour of the capsule and so on. And that was winding down, and they were securing from that and getting ready for sleep time.
We're just about ready to close out our inspection of Aquarius and get back to a pleasant evening at Odyssey. Good night.
Gene Kranz went around the room, says, before we put the crew to bed, is there anything you want to do before they shut down for the night? And I said, okay, Flight, what I need him to do is stop charging one of the batteries and give me a cryo stare all 4 tanks. 4 switches, all 4 tanks, no big deal.
Command Module pilot Jack Swigert threw the switches to activate fans to stir the tanks of liquid hydrogen and oxygen. Suddenly, the spacecraft lurched, as if struck by a meteor.
Houston, we've had a problem. We've had a BP bus undervolt.
And it was a very obvious abnormal combination of shock and initial felt motion, as well as sound reverberating through the hull.
And we had a pretty large bang associated with the caution and warning there.
Warning lights indicated problems everywhere. Fuel cells dying, maneuvering thrusters out, oxygen tanks losing pressure.
It was not until we really saw the oxygen escape from the rear of our spacecraft that we realized that we were in very, very deep trouble. Then we got that sinking feeling, you know, that searing sensation in your stomach. When you're in deep trouble and don't know how to get out of it.
The routine stir of liquid oxygen had somehow triggered a short circuit. The oxygen tank, which fed the electrical system, had exploded. Now 2 of the 3 command module fuel cells were nearly dead.
This is virtually a quadruple failure. And we just didn't train for that because there really was no way out of it.
We really thought that God would not be so unkind as to give us more than one failure at one time in one system.
Check there.
I knew it was an abort, that we'd lost the mission.
The original mission, exploring the lunar highlands, had to be abandoned. The new mission became get the astronauts home, alive.
And I'm down at the Cape, said goodbye to the guys, and I watched the launch. And then I headed for Houston, and then the word came back.
The Apollo 13 spacecraft has had a serious power supply malfunction that could cause the lunar landing mission to be terminated early.
Without question, I was disappointed. At the beginning of an experiment, you got good people working on it, you're enthused and all. Priorities are priorities. My concern was for the crew. These are people I worked with.
The command module's power supply was nearly spent. Soon its computer, lights and gauges would be dead. The ground directs Lovell, Hayes and Swigert to use the lunar module as their lifeboat.
We figure we've got about 15 minutes worth of power left in the command module, so we want you to start getting over in the LEM and getting some power on that.
The LEM had its own power supply, but it had been designed to support 2 people for 45 hours. Now there were to be 3, and they were at least 90 hours from home. Ground Control decided they should continue around the Moon and take advantage of lunar gravity to turn them back towards the Earth. Then, to get them home before the power ran out, they had to accelerate their crippled spacecraft by firing the LEM's small descent engine, an extremely critical maneuver that had never been tested.
The ground started to send up the instructions to me of how long to make the burn, what attitude, and things like that. And I had my 2 companions in the lunar module with me. When I looked at them, they weren't paying any attention at all. They had cameras in their hands. They said, well, as we go around to the far side, we're going to take some pictures. And that's when I told them that if we didn't get home, they weren't going to get them developed anyway.
Jim, you go for the burn. Go for the burn. Roger, understand. Go for the burn.
And it worked.
Ground confirms ignition.
We're burning 40%.
But as soon as it was over with, then we turned everything off. And we had only the radio and a little fan to circulate the atmosphere because we had to save power.
It got very cold and very damp. My guess is it was somewhere between 35 and 40 degrees. I started having chills and fever. It was nothing that made me incapacitated or couldn't function. It was just added to the uncomfortableness of the situation.
For 3 days, Lovell, Swigert, and the ailing Hayes huddled in the freezing lunar module. An improvised filter fought against poisoned air. And as they approached the Earth, another potential disaster loomed.
When the ground was tracking us, they found out that we were not inside the free return course. And the free return course is a 2-degree pie-shaped wedge that you have to come down into with respect to the Earth's atmosphere. We were beneath it, which we could have missed the atmosphere or skipped out, like skipping a stone on water, and we'd be gone. So we had to make another maneuver, but our computer was down, our guidance system wasn't working, our autopilot was off, and we had to do it literally by the seat of our pants.
Lovell and Hayes set the course by eye, aiming towards the Earth, and firing the thrusters by hand to control the ship's direction. Swigert timed the main engine's burn using his wristwatch. The course correction seemed to have worked, but they had no way of knowing if the explosion had damaged the re-entry heat shield. There is always a communications blackout lasting about 3 minutes. The spaceship heats up to over 8,000 degrees while it roars into Earth's atmosphere. The 3 minutes pass. Then 4.
The extended blackout period got us. It's the first time I came up and said, something didn't go right. And then I immediately caught myself and saying, no, it's some kind of a communications aberration. There's something wrong with communications. This crew is coming home. I cried. As soon as I saw those parachutes, it was literally the tears flowed. And I think this was true for many of the people.
I did return. I did get back from this mission. But I think it's human nature. You cannot do the preparation and the training and have the investment in accomplishing what was in the flight plan and accomplish so little. So there was that kind of a stigma for me that we didn't get it done.
The crew was safe, but the sense of relief was tempered by a growing realization that the days of moon missions were numbered.